Hey guys, it's me, the Dark Master here, and today I'm going to be doing another Prior Extinction video. And in this video, I'm going to be doing the Prior Extinction tier list, as you can see in the label. So first of all, let's start it off. So, at the very bottom of F tier, we have the Hypsilophodon. Now, only reason Hypsilophodon is at the very bottom of F tier and not higher than Troodon or Ornithomimus or Crioceratops is because, to be honest, Hypsilophodon can't do any bleed damage, and his highest attack damage that he could do is 15 with his 3 attack. And to be honest, bleed can really damage smaller dinosaurs. Exactly why Troodon is very good. So, that's really why Hypsilophodon is there. But the gameplay for Hypsilophodon is quite nice. You could burrow and hide yourself, and you could go to different places really fast. Only thing is that a lot of dinosaurs are faster than you, such as the Carnotaurus, and also such as Dilophosaurus, I'm pretty sure. But either than that, Hypsilophodon is kind of terrible. And this next thing, we have the Troodon. Troodon is a good dinosaur, actually. It could bleed out sort of big things, such as Ceratosaurus and Camptosaurus. That's really just because its hitbox is small. Either than that, it's one shot from both, pretty much, because Ceratosaurus can do more damage than it with its 3 attack, which will one-shot the Troodon. And also the Camptosaurus's 3 attack does 98 damage, I'm pretty sure. But that's really what I feel about it. Its bleed is quite good. You could get some bleed 2s and bleed 4s with its attacks, and especially for those smaller dinosaurs such as Ornithomimus and Hypsilophodon, they're going to want to heal from something like bleed 4, just because that still does a big portion of their health. So that's really why it's the second worst in the tier list. But anyways, next we have the Ornithomimus. Now, Ornithomimus is really good. It has the fastest base speed in the game, but its health should have a tiny buff, just because, to be honest, doesn't have enough health for what it looks like. Ornithomimus also does not do a lot of damage, does just a bit more than Hypsilophodon, allowing it to take on things like Troodon. But again, with its health, it can really get fast down with bleed, which is why Carnotaurus can absolutely obliterate Ornithomimus if it's not careful. But either than that, its speed can pretty much save it from anything except for Carnotaurus. And maybe if it has no stamina. That's also a very big thing, just because Ornithomimus doesn't have too much stamina. And to be honest, it's not too fast in water either, and that's why Crioceratops is up there. Just because Crioceratops has about the same base speed above water as probably a Suco, where that's pretty good. It's faster than Deinosuchus. But the big thing that it is terrible against is the Caprosuchus, just because Capro does have a lot of speed on land and in water. So it's really hard to avoid Capro as the Crioceratops, but either than that, it is a lot of armor. And also it can do bleed with its 3rd attack, making it very hard to defend against for Troodons. And some bigger dinosaurs such as Ceratosaurus. Although, to be honest, Ceratosaurus would most likely win. but with two Crioceratopses, they would probably win. Also, if Crioceratops is fighting in the water, if there's water right next to it, it could escape, rest, heal the bleed really quick, then come straight back at the anything. So it's quite a good dinosaur. But anyways, next we have the get what it is. Pretty sure it's the Cosmoceratops. Hopefully I'm right. But the Cosmoceratops is pretty good. Has the same health as Cerato. Its defense is good, and its speed is very fast. Only downside to it is that since its speed is very fast, its turning speed is kind of slow, especially with its fast speed, allowing predators such as Dilophosaurus, Ceratosaurus, Caprosuchus even, and Utahraptor to be able to damage it quite hard without it doing damage. But either than that, it's pretty fine. That's why it's at the bottom of E tier. Anyways, next we have the Megalosaurus. Now, I know some of you guys won't agree with me with this. Like, you guys probably think Dilophosaurus should be there, but Megalosaurus doesn't really have good base stats at all. A lot of people would rather select different things, such as the Dilophosaurus, rather than the Megalosaurus, just because for its size, it's kind of slow. And also with that, its damage is good, but anything could tail ride it, so it's basically like a tank small tier dinosaur. But to be honest, it's not really all that good. Nowhere to be near the Utahraptor, just because Utahraptor can do a ton of damage now. Anyways, next dinosaur we're going to be moving on to is the Camptosaurus. Camptosaurus is quite a good dinosaur. It can pretty much kill some of the big dinosaurs such as Allosaurus, but that's only if the Camptosaurus does the stun attack and then starts attacking at the tail. If it doesn't, then it's no matter what dead. Also, Camptosaurus does have a good base speed, doesn't have as fast as Dilophosaurus or Utahraptor, but its base speed's pretty good. It definitely could defeat all the lower tier dinosaurs below it, but with the higher tier dinosaurs above it, it's a pretty fair game there. But anyways, next we're going to move on to the Dilophosaurus. Now, the Dilophosaurus is quite a good dinosaur. It's not really the best of best dinosaurs to choose, but with the update they buffed its damage a bit, and its health, I think, remained the same. But Dilophosaurus also can jump now, and it does have a higher base speed. So it's pretty much a better version of Dilophosaurus, and I think it has the old Utah stats. So that's kind of fine. Utah was sorta E tier anyways last time, but that's really why it's in E tier. It also has good bleed, so it could bleed out some big herbivores. That's pretty much all I have to say about the Dilophosaurus. But anyways, next thing we do have the Caprosuchus. Now, Caprosuchus is top of E tier only because it is fast, it doesn't do a ton of damage, its bleed is good, but to be honest, it dies before it can bleed anything out. Although it is fast, a lot of things with higher base attack damage can easily get at it, which, to be honest, is exactly why it's an E tier dinosaur, because anything such as things like Dilophosaurus can even get at it. But the thing is, when it's next to water, you could pretty much win a lot of the times just because the high water speed, high ground speed, you could pretty much cycle your opponent. So it's quite a fine dinosaur. Wouldn't say it's really the best thing to play as, but its base stats are also quite decent. But that's really all I have to say about Caprasuchus. So anyways, next let's move on to D tier. In D tier, we have the Utyrannus at the very bottom. Reason I say this is, sure, it has a very high base speed. Its damage is lower than Utah's though, which can be concerning, especially if the fight is not about speed and it's about heavy damage. Also, Utyrannus does not have good bleed at all. It can't really bleed things out. Anything it tries to bleed out usually dies before it can even get to bleed 5. So it's really quite a fine dinosaur. Anyways, next thing is the Sucho. Reason Sucho's below Utah is because its base speed is very slow, doesn't have too high oxygen. Its base damage is very terrible. It's sort of worse in Utah's, on my opinion, just because Utah's has a very fast recharge, where Sucho's attacks are sort of slower, so it's kind of harder to play as the Sucho than the Utah. Also, it can get bodied by some of the smaller dinosaurs, such as Camptosaurus, and also Caprasuchus can easily kill it, just because its water speed isn't high, its ground speed isn't high at all either. So it's quite a D tier dinosaur, not the best. But anyways, next we have the top of D tier in the Utahraptor. Utahraptor is very good. It has pretty much the best stats of the small dinosaurs in the game. It can do a ton of damage before dying, and most opponents that it fights usually bleeds out before they die. So it's really good for getting close, where some dinosaurs such as Megalosaurus and Caprosuchus and Cosmoceratops are quite hard at doing that, to be able to secure what they're securing. Also, with Utah, it's very easy to steal food from other players just because you're faster, and even if you do a tiny bit of damage, the bleed is sort of what most players focus on, so if you try and get food from another player, they're probably going to want to walk away if you at least give them bleed 6 or 7. Especially with Utah, because if it gets to bleed 7, it does around 300 damage with all 3 attacks combined, which then gives you bleed 7, and by then, a lot of medium dinosaurs as well will walk away from this if they never even hit the Utah. Where some Utah players will go and finish that dinosaur, but some will just leave it be. Anyways, that's really why Utah's good. It's just a very good, strong, small dinosaur that could take on some of the medium dinosaurs. Anyways, next we got C tier. In C tier, we've got the Regaloceratops. Reason Regaloceratops is there, it's kind of slow for its speed, slower than Allosaurus. Where, to be honest, that's a pretty big thing just because Allosaurus has a lot more health than it. Also, its bleed is good. It does more bleed than Allosaurus. But the thing is, its base attack's good, but its turning speed is so terrible that it's very hard to defend against players such as Carno, Allosaurus, and Gorgosaurus. Also, anything that gets a lot of bites on it can really die very quick with the bleed, and Regaloceratops is not good at defending bleed just because it doesn't have enough armor to be able to have the bleeds to disappear. Just because the armor breaks really fast, especially with medium dinosaurs, such as Allosaurus and Gorgosaurus. where then the bleed pretty much finishes the thing. So that's really why Regaloceratops is bottom of C tier. Anyways, next we got the Carno. So Carno is pretty good, has the highest speed in the game for carnivores, and it can pretty much kill anything lower tier than it. The reason I say this is because even with Suko, it could tail ride it very fast. Even if the Suko is near water, you'll still be able to get it. Although, if it does go in water, the food's gone, but that's still fine. You, anyways, got the kill. But Carno is very good as well for counterattacks. So let's say if something tried to attack you, you could speed around it. Thing is though, the turning speed's quite bad for that. So if anything has turning speed a lot higher than you, such as Allosaurus or Pachycephalosaurus, the counterattack won't really work, and you can't really get the easy damage done to make them either want to walk away or you to finish them. Just because Carno doesn't have the highest turning speed out of carnivores is kind of bad just because it has that high speed. So Carno really can't really do too much in that situation. But all out it's pretty good for taking on smaller things than it. Can't really fight anything bigger rather than Amargasaurus and Pachycephalosaurus. Anyways, next thing we've got is the Amargasaurus. The reason Amargasaurus is down there is because its damage is so terrible that it literally cannot compare to any other sauropod such as the Diplodocus or the Argentinosaurus or the Camarasaurus or even the Sauroposeidon. The reason I say this is because all of those dinosaurs can easily do a ton of damage really quick to big carnivores, where the Amargasaurus can't really take on a lot of medium carnivores, where it's sort of classified as a medium dinosaur. Also, Amargasaurus has some of the worst turning speed out of any herbivore, which you would expect that for like bigger sauropods, but no, this sauropod has some of the worst turning speed out of any herbivore in the game. So I don't really recommend people playing as Amargasaurus just because a lot of people get behind Amargasaurus and then finish it off. Although the tail attacks do damage, like anything 400 health higher can easily counter that and still be at 100 health by just tail riding you as a Amargasaurus. So that's really why it's kind of below Pachycephalosaurus. Where, anyways, next, let's go to Pachycephalosaurus. Pachycephalosaurus is really good if you know how to play. Not too many people really know how to play that well to be able to take on things acro higher. But if you do know how to play really well as Pachycephalosaurus, you can take things out sometimes like Giga, but you do have to watch out that you don't go too close to them, or else they'll do a ton of trample damage to you and you'll be done. A lot of good Pachycephalosaurus players don't go for the face first just because you could easily get one-shotted. And Pachycephalosaurus has some of the best speed in the game. It could really go fast, and it also has a great turning speed rather than Carno. It can pretty much secure any area if it wanted to. It could also stay alive quite well due to its speed. Also, its stun can take out some big carnivores such as Allosaurus, Gorgosaurus, and sometimes I think maybe Sarco. I don't know if it could not stun Sarco though. But that's really why Pachycephalosaurus is in C tier. Anyways, next at the top C tier we got the Pachyrhinosaurus. Now Pachyrhinosaurus is quite a good dinosaur. It can do stun to some of the larger dinosaurs like Acro. It could do a ton of damage as well if you go full on at them, like with a trike player, and you could really just end a lot of people really fast by using Pachycephalosaurus. Just because the bleed goes to bleed 5, and the base damage should be around Utah's base damage, and also you have 200 more health than Utah. So that's a pretty good thing. Also, as Pachyrhinosaurus, you have decent speed. You could go faster than most carnivores, like Gorgosaurus you could go faster than, and Acro. So you could easily survive against both, but Allosaurus is quite hard to survive against, especially just because it has very high base speed. Also, its turning speed is very good as well, so it's not likely that you'll be able to tail ride Allosaurus. Also, a lot of dinosaurs can fight you head on, especially with their high bleed, where Allosaurus has really fast attacks and could do 11 bleed in less than 8 seconds, I think. So that's really why Cephalosaurus, not Pachycephalosaurus, but Pachyrhinosaurus is in C tier. Anyways, next we have the B tier dinosaurs. So we have Kentrosaurus. Reason Kentrosaurus is in B tier. Kentrosaurus does a ton of bleed. It can easily fight some dinosaurs like Gorgosaurus and Allosaurus. Reason is though, if you get attacked at the head and they sorta slide and don't go close to your second tail attacks, they only go to one side of your body, you can't really do damage to them with your other attacks, and you'll be dead before you can actually inflict bleed 18 within a few seconds. And Kentrosaurus is basically like Stegosaurus with its bleed. It's just a bit worse. Stegosaurus can kill top tier predators. It could even kill the Indominus Rex or the Albino Giga, which is a Game Pass dinosaur. So that's really the reason why it's in B tier. Just because, unlike Stegosaurus, it doesn't have high base damage, and it doesn't do as much bleed really quickly like Stegosaurus. Anyways, next let's move on to the Gorgosaurus. So Gorgosaurus is pretty good. It's very slow though. Allosaurus and Ceratosaurus and anything smaller than it and faster can easily defeat Gorgosaurus really fast. Also, Gorgosaurus doesn't have too high of a turning speed, and Gorgosaurus has just a bit more health than Allosaurus and higher damage, but it barely has bleed, where bleed can really come in handy for a lot of the things. So that's really why Gorgosaurus is at low B tier. Anyways, next we got the Parasaurolophus, and Parasaurolophus is quite good. It could do 500 damage really quickly right now in 5 seconds, and that's quite good. But only thing is, if something gets behind you, they could damage you really fast and make you have high bleed. Especially things like Allosaurus and Acrocanthosaurus can easily do that to you. Also, you're pretty much screwed if any small dinosaur starts attacking the back of your dinosaur as Parasaurolophus, just because Parasaurolophus doesn't have too high of a turning speed. It's okay, it's decent, but not too high. So it can easily die due to the turning speed of it. So that's really why it's in middle B tier. Anyways, next we got the Diplodocus. Reason I put Diplodocus there is just because it could easily get bodied by sauropod hunting dinosaurs such as Allosaurus, Acrocanthosaurus, and Giga. Also to crocodilians such as Sarcosuchus and Dinosuchus. Also, Spinosaurus can take it on really quickly. Also, the stun doesn't really help too much for big predators. Sauropod hunters or not. Things like T-Rex and Spinosaurus, it could easily get clapped. Also, if it's going in the way of bigger herbivores, it could really get crushed by things like Sinoceratops, um, and also Magnapolia, just because the main food for every herbivore dinosaur is trees for the sauropods. And since Diplodocus is the smallest one out of the sauropods that could eat trees, it's going to be quite hard to survive just because all of the other sauropods who want to amber grind for their nice other dinosaurs that they want to save up for can really get easily killed really fast. So the reason why Diplodocus is there is because it can't really stay in one area too much. It has to move around, and that could be really detrimental when a lot of the dinosaurs, like pack hunting dinosaurs, can force it away from its food. So that's really why it's in B tier. Anyways, next we got the Allosaurus. Allosaurus is a great dinosaur. It's top of B tier. It can pretty much shred through a ton of dinosaurs with its high bleed. Also, it has some of the highest carnivore base speed in the game and turning speed. It could kill things such as T-Rex if you could get behind a T-Rex, and it could easily kill Dinosuchus by tail riding it. A lot of things actually can kill Dinosuchus and Sarcosuchus just because of its slow turning speed. Allosaurus can also kill things like Dinochirus just because Dinochirus does not have high base attack, so you could attack at the front and then do damage behind really fast. Also, its bleed can end things quite fast as well. In 10 seconds, Allosaurus could get 15 bleed, where that's pretty strong against things like Stegosaurus, its favorite food. Anyways, that's why Allosaurus is in B tier, top of B tier. Anyways, next we got the Acrocanthosaurus. The reason I put Acro there is just because it doesn't have, it has a high base attack damage, but its bleed is kinda wonky. Doesn't really work too well, just because its bleed is sort of mixed, unlike Allosaurus's, where it just keeps getting higher. Where Acrocanthosaurus's bleed sort of goes up and then down and then back to the level of where it was, just because of the slow attack speed. Also, it can't survive against bigger things such as Magnapolia and Sinoceratops, and it could get easily killed by things such as Gorgosaurus and Allosaurus just because of the high base damage and bleed that they could easily do to Acrocanthosaurus just because of its high speed. Where also Acrocanthosaurus does have a big advantage though. Has a 200 health difference, and it's the biggest medium dinosaur in the game. So that's quite nice. But anyways, next we got the Sinoceratops, and Sinoceratops is there just because it could stack bleed like crazy. Bleed 10 in all 3 attacks. Has very high armor, and can also keep its health at 500 for a while, especially when attacking medium carnivores. So that's really why it's sort of low on A tier, just because its base health is a medium dinosaur health. So that's really why it's there. Anyways, next in the middle of B tier we got, A tier, we have the Camarasaurus, and Camarasaurus kind of sucks. It could get killed by things like Giga, T-Rex, and any apex predator. Also, it's quite hard to survive and grow as Camarasaurus, just because it takes about an hour to grow Camarasaurus, so that's kind of slow. Also, its attacks aren't really too worth it to have, and it's kind of a bad sauropod dinosaur. It's at least better than Diplodocus, but still very bad. Anyways, next we've got the Magnapolia, and the Magnapolia is quite good. Although it does take very high damage, especially with things that can attack its tail really fast. Where Allosaurus and Sarcosuchus can easily do damage to Magnapolia before it even does its first attack. So, anyways, that's why Magnapolia is in middle A tier. And next we got the Sarcosuchus. Sarcosuchus is pretty good, although against big predators it kind of gets bodied. Also, its turning speed is quite slow on land, so that's really why it's in second highest place on A tier. Anyways, next we've got the Dinosaurus, and Dinosaurus is top of A tier just because it's an omnivore. It could eat anything, so it has a pretty good survival skill. Also, it's the smallest large creature, and it could kill things like T-Rex fast. And also, it has some armor which can help with the first attack as well. That's really why it's in top of A tier. But anyways, next we're going to the A plus tier. This is the second best tier in Power Extinction. So we got Stegosaurus. Stegosaurus has great bleed and base attack damage, making it the strongest Stegosaurian in the game. Also, it could kill big predators such as Tyrannosaurus and Giga, which can easily lead them into really quick ends, where not a lot of dinosaurs like to mess with Stegosaurus. Smaller things like Allosaurus would take their chance, but not all succeed. Anyways, next we got Spinosaurus. Spinosaurus is pretty good. It just has super terrible land stats, but all out it could survive its way pretty good, especially in the water. It has good oxygen, so it's really quite a great dinosaur. Anyways, next we got the Ankylosaurus. Ankylosaurus is really good just because it has high armor. Could kill things like T-Rex and Giga without even taking damage, just losing like 60 armor. And that's really why it's there, just because it is a very big tank. Although S tier dinosaurs can easily crush it. Anyways, next we got Therizinosaurus. Therizinosaurus is super good. It could really stack bleeds super fast, faster than Stegosaurus. And also the base damage for the claws is like 150 for each claw attack, which can easily end a ton of dinosaurs, especially if you're tail riding them. And that's why Therizinosaurus is so good. Anyways, next we got the Giganotosaurus, and Giga is very good. It could stack its bleed like a ton, and it could bleed bigger dinosaurs out like sauropods, where not a lot of dinosaurs can bleed sauropods, so it's the best for sauropod hunting. And it also has great base stats in health and damage, so that's really good. But anyways, next we have T-Rex, the best carnivore dinosaur. It is very strong. It could easily kill all the dinosaurs below it, except Stegosaurus, Ankylosaurus, and also it has a pretty fair matchup against Giga. Therizinosaurus, though, the damage sort of beats the bleed there, so. Anyways, but T-Rex can absolutely destroy things. It is the best carnivorous dinosaur, and that's really all I have to say. But anyways, we got the top of A tier now in the trike, and the trike can really kill anything below it. It's also good at eating all the food in one area, so that it forces herbivore dinosaurs to move out of the area, just because the main herbivore is there. So it also makes it so that carnivores move to different places, which can balance out the ecosystem in one place. Just because if too many players are in one part of the map as carnivores, and one place is covered in herbivores, the carnivores are probably going to want to go over to where all the herbivores are to get their food. That's really what I think about Trike. So it's really a A plus dinosaur. Anyways, next we got the S tiers. So very bottom of S tier is the Sauroposeidon. Sauroposeidon takes a long time to grow, but it's kind of worth it just because you can't get killed by anything higher than it, rather than Argentinosaurus and a ton of pack of dinosaurs can easily kill it as well. But it's really powerful, but it just takes a long time to grow. And next we got the Shantosaurus. Shantosaurus is really good. It could literally destroy any carnivore dinosaurs, except for Deinosuchus, which isn't a dinosaur. It's crocodilian, reptile. So that's really why it's there. Anyways, next we got Deinosuchus, the best damage in the game. Do 1,500 damage with all its hits, which that kills Shantosaurus very fast. No dinosaur can survive Deinosuchus rather than Sauroposeidon full grown and also Argentinosaurus full grown. So Deinosuchus is pretty much a great dinosaur, but it takes a really long time to get for the achievement. Also the growth time is as much as the Camarasaurus. Anyways, next we got the Argentinosaurus, which is the strongest dinosaur in the game in base stats. It does take a long time to grow though, and it usually gets killed very often when it's still growing. But it's very good for getting amber really quick, so that's why it's there. Anyways guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this tier list video. This is going to be the last tier list video before they add the new update, which is going to be the revamp. And I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one.